The wind swept across the wide, sunburned plains, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and dust, the kind that settled deep in a man's boots and soul. The sky stretched forever, a hard blue dome over a land that gave nothing easily. Somewhere between the mesas and the distant silhouettes of cattle, a girl walked barefoot along the wagon trail. Her hair was dark as nightfall, her dress torn, her eyes fierce yet trembling. The rancher spotted her from the saddle, a lean man named Luke Carver who'd long stopped expecting surprises in life. He was driving a few stray steers back toward his ranch when he saw her alone, half-starved and swaying with exhaustion. He slowed his horse, keeping his distance. Around these parts, strangers were trouble more often than not. "You lost?" he called out. The girl didn't answer. She just looked at him, eyes wary, then said softly, "I can't live without a man." Luke blinked, not sure he'd heard her right. "Beg your pardon?" She repeated it, voice firmer this time, though her lip trembled. "I can't live without a man. My father's gone. My brothers were taken by the soldiers. There's no one left. I can't live alone." Her words weren't flirtation or weakness. They were survival laid bare under the open sky. Luke dismounted, cautious. He'd heard of the Apache tribes displaced after skirmishes with settlers and soldiers, whole families broken apart. This girl couldn't have been more than 16. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nasha," she said. "It means owl." Luke gave a slow nod. "You got anywhere to go, Nasha?" She shook her head. He hesitated. His ranch was no place for a young woman alone. Not in the eyes of the town or the men he hired. Folks talked, and talk in the West could turn cruel fast. Still, leaving her out here meant she'd be dead by morning. And something in the way she stood defiant despite the dust and hunger stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years. Compassion, maybe. Or just plain decency. "Come on then," he said finally. "You can stay a while. Just until you figure things out." Nasha didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped in relief. At the ranch, Luke gave her a room in the old bunkhouse, and a meal that made her cry quietly when she thought he wasn't looking. She worked hard, cleaned, cooked, mended gear, even tended to the horses with a calm confidence that impressed him. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words carried weight. She'd grown up close to the land, could track rabbits by broken stems, and told stories about spirits that guided the wind. Luke's ranch hands eyed her warily at first, but soon they couldn't deny her kindness. She patched their shirts, fed the dogs, and somehow made the place feel alive again. Weeks turned into months, and the hard lines of Luke's face began to soften. He'd lost his wife years before cholera took her, and he'd sealed his heart tight ever since. But Nasha had a way of looking at things that reminded him the world still held light, even after all the losses. One evening, as the sun bled red over the hills, Luke found her sitting by the corral fence, staring at the horizon. "You ever think about going back to your people?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "There's no one left." He nodded, knowing that kind of emptiness. "I'll tell you something," he said after a long silence. "When my wife died, I thought I couldn't live without her, thought the world had ended. But it didn't. It just changed shape. Sometimes it takes a long time to see what's still worth living for." Nasha turned to him, her eyes glistening. "Then why did you help me?" He paused, unsure how to explain the ache that had driven his choice. "Maybe because someone once helped me. When I came out west, I didn't know a thing about surviving. A Comanche man, old hunter, found me half dead in the desert. He shared his water, showed me how to read the land. I never forgot that. I guess I owed a debt to kindness." That night, Nasha prayed in her own tongue, not to be saved, but to be strong enough to live. As winter came, so did trouble. A band of drifters rode through men who'd fought in the war and never found peace after. They saw the ranch as easy pickings, and the sight of an Apache girl working there was enough to stir their hate. Luke faced them at dawn, his rifle steady but his voice calm. "You've got no business here," he said. One of the men spat. "You got yourself a squaw now, Carver. Ain't right, keeping company with savages." Before Luke could answer, Nasha stepped out from behind the barn, bow in hand, her face unreadable. "I am no man's woman," she said fiercely, "but I am not afraid." Her courage stopped everyone cold. Luke saw it too, the strength in her stance, the unbroken spirit that no cruelty could crush. The drifters hesitated, then turned away, muttering. Maybe it was her defiance, or maybe they saw the way Luke looked at her, protective, unyielding, and decided not to test it. When it was over, Luke turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." She smiled faintly. "Yes, I did. You gave me a home when I had none. A person cannot live without someone who believes they can." It struck him then the truth behind her first words. "I can't live without a man" hadn't meant what he'd thought. It wasn't about dependence or weakness. It was about connection, about how none of the man or woman could live without compassion, without another human heart willing to share the burden of being alive. Winter passed, and spring painted the plains green again. The ranch began to thrive, almost as if the land itself had softened. Nasha learned to read and write. Luke learned to laugh again. Together, they rebuilt fences and planted new orchards, their days stitched together by quiet understanding. One morning, Nasha left a small carving on Luke's porch, a wooden owl, wings spread wide. On its base, she had etched a single phrase, "You taught me to fly without needing to belong." He kept it there always. Years later, when travelers stopped by the Carver Ranch, they heard stories about the Apache woman who helped build it, how she taught the ranchers' men respect, how she healed wounded horses and hearts alike. They said she was the spirit of the land itself, untamed and kind. And sometimes when the wind blew through the sage at dusk, old Luke would swear he could hear her laughter, free, strong, alive. He would smile then, remembering the day she walked out of the desert, broken but unbowed, saying she couldn't live without a man. She'd been right, in a way, not because she needed one, but because every soul, no matter how fierce, needs another to remind them they matter. That was the heart of it, the reason the world kept turning, even in the hardest places. It wasn't the cattle, the land, or the guns that made the West endure. It was the stubborn kindness of people who refused to stop caring. And so the story spread long after both of them were gone. The tale of the Apache girl who found strength in compassion, and the rancher who learned that saving a life could save his own. In a land that took more than it gave, they'd found something rare, proof that even the loneliest hearts could find home, not in a place but in each other. And out there, under the endless western sky, that kind of love was the wildest miracle of all.